back again to do a little bit of streaming. I just got back from a short vacation, so my brain is still on vacation mode. So gotta remember what I was doing last stream, remember and figure out what I want to do this time, and get into it again. So that's the name of the game for me today. Making sure all my timers are set and everything like that, and I can get right into it. So let me pop the scene. All right, I actually left all this stuff up on my computer, so I'm pretty much right where I left off. If I recall, what I was working on was multi-method in Clojure here with the translate element stuff, and I do believe I was able to get it working where I have a path element working. And so what I want to do, since path can take any number of paths, I want to actually just see if switching polygon to path will actually work right away, and if it'll actually rebuild the page. Okay, so we have something not working, which is always a fun way to start. Okay, so polygon works. Path here should work, I thought. Let me see here. Shapes here. Path. Closed path. Oh, that's right, I should probably call it what it is. Like that, right? If I do that, will that work? Let's have a look here. Let's inspect this element, right? It's path, right? So if I change this back to polygon, let's see here. It's a polygon. Okay, so that is working. And this is totally unrelated, but it's actually like raining out where I live. It's been probably a month, maybe 2 months without any real significant rain. So my brain is not used to seeing seeing the dark clouds and all of that, but it's actually really nice. It's good, refreshing. The temperature is only 20 and not 29 Celsius. It's nice. I'm pretty into it. I am pretty into it. Okay, so let me just see here. If I change this to 70, right? If I save that and this rebuilds, it should shift this way, which it did. Likewise, if I do this, it should shift upward. Perfect. 0, 0. It's lined up exactly on the edges there, which is cool. Now, well, let's make this 100 again and 100 again, because why not? And then here, I'm curious what I should do with this. So what I want to do is see closed path theoretically can take any number of path, it can take a list of points. So what I'm doing here is adding this list, and I want to change the position of the points a little bit. to see that it does indeed work. So if I change this to 10 and this to 10 as well, if I just add 10 to everything, what does this look like? Oh yeah, it just shifts it. But the cool thing is, it is all there. So if I make this, in fact, negative 10, and instead of 100, we do 90. Oh, I'm looking at that one. Okay. So that's not what I want exactly. Wonder why negative 10 didn't work here. Negatives don't work there for some reason. Why would that be? Let's have a look. I bet it's related to how I have my path. Right. If I don't translate, if I just get rid of this line, yeah, okay. Oh, so that's good that I figured that out. The way translate works with path is it edits the path string, and I built in some. Let's go up here and have a look at this. I have in here closed path string. These names really should be cleaned up a little bit, but I'm not exactly sure what a good way to name them is. But here, this is my problem. Closed path back to points, right? If I run that over, so let's just run closed path string on a list of, one second, I have to answer this message for a moment. Have a look. Do you guys ever get that? You know, you're working on something and this technically important but kind of inopportune message pops up and you're totally derailed? That's me. That's okay. I will just answer this for a second. Oh boy, messages, eh? That's okay. Okay, that should be good. So what I was working on is figuring this problem out here. So if I copy this into here, Right, so we've got this -10 properly encoded in there, but if let me def this as a temporary thing here like that. Okay, so A is this negative, right? If I run closed path to points on A, it loses the negative here, so that's a problem. So what I need to do is fix it, obviously. So what almost works is drop last here. This is where things go wrong, because I have, if I do string split and the string is this -10, but I split with \D is split on anything that's not a digit, I get this. I'm also going to run into this same problem, the same is if I do that, right? There's decimal issues. So I actually, this is a bigger, this is not very robust yet, right? So I have to fix that. Because if I do, as soon as I get stuff like this, okay, let's imagine it is 10, but let's imagine it's 10.5. There's going to be some weirdness going on there. So it's, the points are totally wrong because it's split on decimals in a way that doesn't make sense. This is also going to be a problem if someone ever uses it from like Europe or whatever, and they do like 10 point, if they write 10.25 like this instead of like this. Although I'm going to assume yeah, I'm just going to follow the same idea of Clojure where it has to be this for it to be a float. Like that, right? 0,2 doesn't mean anything. It's just it's equivalent to white space, so that's fine, right? Yeah. Perfect. Oh. Oh boy, I'm a little tired today. Right. So here we have some problems where this breaks there. Okay, so this is the thing I have to think about. Right, I needed to split on... Oh wait, can't I do split this string? Let's imagine negative 10.25 is my number, right? And I needed to split on some regex that is D period or negative, and it's any. Oh, that's inverted to what I want, but that's a start. How do I invert that? Nope, that's not quite right. See, I thought the square brackets were the inversion, but obviously I'm incorrect here. So let me figure that one out for a minute. No, that's wrong. Oh, is it something like, I forget, is it this? No. Okay, I should look it up. Let's go here. Invert the regex, I don't know. Inverse match. This is kind of what I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm maybe missing something here. I'll just have to poke around a bit more. Yeah, okay, so this is not correct yet. Although let me see here if I do that's not what I meant. Okay, so really what I need this to do is, like, the result I want is the negative 10.25 just with the m removed. So I need to invert. Oh, no, that's not right. Maybe it's just this. Anything, maybe it's just match on anything not A to Z. Oh. Not quite. Okay, that might be what I'm looking for here. Getting all kinds of messages today. I guess that's what happens. It was a long weekend, so that's why I wasn't. I was still on vacation yesterday, driving home. So that's why I wasn't back on here yesterday. But now that does mean everyone's getting back into work and, you know, going through their inbox and all that stuff. And so the stuff I ended up sending out during the holiday, they all get answered now, and people are catching up and blah blah blah. Let me see if this idea fixes what my issue is. Let's get rid of this. Right, so let's split instead of with not D. A to Z, like that. Let's see if that fixes things up. Let's have a look. So what I can do there, if I go like this, if I have a look at what A is, okay, I should be able to do yeah, okay, so here we have not destroyed the negative of that A, which is theoretically really nice. So let's define A again with some decimals in there as well, just to check that. Okay, so 10.25. Okay, so that's A. Okay, so let's see that we got the right points back out again. Negative 10.25, 110.2, correct, 10.7, 10.8, good, 15.20. Okay, so this looks like we're back in business. Not quite, apparently. Let's refresh this just to make sure. Yeah, okay, there we go. We're good. We're good. Beautiful. All right, I have to answer a call. I'll be back in a minute. Oh man, what a day. I'm getting calls and emails and all kinds of stuff. For some reason, it feels like when people need to communicate, they all communicate at like in the same half-hour window on the same day, and then it's a week, 2 weeks until it happens again. It's craziness. It's crazy. Not sure if you can tell, but got a little bit of nasal congestion going on here. Oh boy. Okay. All I ended up typing was "be right." Classic. Okay. I think that's good. You know, I wonder actually if I should just, instead of drop last here, right? If instead, right, so A, if I instead of drop last, I do replace. If I replace from the string the match, which is the letter Z. Oops, I've got to actually specify with what I wish to replace it. Then, right, then I can do that. I could actually I could actually use this same function instead of just on closed paths. I can just use it on anything, right? I think that makes sense. Let's try that. Okay, so drop last. Instead of drop last, we just do s/replace the string s. Yeah, that's good. And then we replace Z with nothing, so it's gone. Let's sanity check that for a minute. Really? Okay, so that didn't work. Let's try that. All right, what am I missing here? Oh, I have to do this. This is wrong. I would have to put this above here. It has to be the first thing because I split is the first thing I do, but I should instead do it this way. This should be, yeah. Actually, let's do it like this. Paste. Okay, that should theoretically fix my issue. There we go. Okay. Now we're cooking. Right, so that, I think, should cover open paths just fine as well. So I should be able to call this path to points like that, which then means all I have to change here is transforms and translates what I'm working on at the moment. So if I pop on down here, this is not true. I fixed that already. Path for path and paths, closed path string of that. It's here, path to points. Okay, so that's that. Let's sanity check. Let's see if this still works. Okay, it seems to be working. This is exciting. I like this. This is a nice way to get back into the groove of things, you know? Just slicing away at simple changes, making the library work okay. I'm there for it. I am there for it. Okay, so let me just check. We do indeed have every all of these shapes that I've built in here working. So we've got, or covered by the translate. So circle, ellipse, 1, 2, 3, line, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, text I haven't covered yet. For sure I haven't covered that one. I also haven't even put text in as a I haven't even put the function in here yet. So that one I shall work on in a minute. But let's see here. So we've got circle, ellipse, line, path, polygon, polyline, and rectangle. And here we've got translate element and translate. Right, so translate now, translate -G is what I will call that. I want to keep it just for now. What this does nicely is all it does is wrap whatever elements you pass it to, you pass into it. All it does is wrap it in a G tag that has a transform built into it. So the reason I have these translate element functions is the idea is if I have to apply translates and stuff like that to a whole bunch of things nested deeply, I don't want to explode the size of the SVG you create, because every time you call translate, you wrap things and nest it deeper and deeper and deeper into these group tags. Instead, you just apply a bunch of translates to things. It calculates the end result position of any element, and then so you could apply 10 different translates to a single thing, and then the resulting SVG will still only be one element tag, right? As opposed to doing the same with the group, with the G tag method, you'll now have 10 G tags nested, and the 11th tag inside there will be your original element. Now there's obviously some potential downsides to calculating directly the translate, in that the user, if they want to edit an SVG thing directly, they've lost information, right? Like they've technically lost intent behind, you know, well, why is that shape exactly there? Why is it calculated to this weird number of decimals and stuff like that? So you technically do lose meaning, right? Like you lose knowledge of how the shape arrived at that position. And that could technically be lost information in the sense that the designer might have originally done something, they translated it there, and they wrote it that way to indicate that, okay, this piece is moved for some reason. And I think that's important to consider, but probably fine, especially considering the fact that I intend the user to be looking at things on the Clojure code level, not on the output SVG level. I still want the SVG to be, you know, human readable, but the human isn't necessarily going to be spending all their time editing the SVG directly. So I do think this translate element approach is better because it keeps complicated files like output SVG and stuff like that. It reduces the file size while still maintaining the visual output. So that's kind of the motivation behind why I want to directly calculate the translate up front. Following that same logic, I have to do another def multi for rotate elements and scale elements. And once those are done, I'm pretty much done with the, call it API if you will, the wrapper part of my document rendering library over SVG basics. And then at that point, I can use that wrapper to produce higher level abstractions in extensions, both like for my quilt pattern stuff that I do, for 2D CAD, and for 3D CAD stuff. So those are kind of those will be the next sort of layers above in abstraction. So that stuff should be fun. There are gonna be interesting things around porting, so technically speaking, I have this direct thing to path, right? I almost do need something that nicely wraps the sort of DSL, domain specific language, that produces valid path, SVG path code. So that is maybe an area where the separation between the base API of the SVG wrapper blends with the higher level of 2D CAD drawings and stuff. So I don't have a solution for that yet. I will have to see what happens with that. But on that note, I'm gonna give myself a little more coffee here and go to the bathroom for a minute. So I will, once again, this time, instead of just being right, I will just be right back. Won't be long. All right. If there's anyone watching right now, and I say anyone watching right now because I hide my viewer count just because it's a little more mentally calming, I guess. I don't freak out as much. Hope you're having a good time, I guess is all I'm saying. If you're watching sometime in the future, thanks for tuning in, and spending the time here on a VOD or on YouTube or whatever it is. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. I'm slowly getting more traction and slowly getting more comfortable doing this, and I really love it. If you're there now, you want to chat, you go right ahead. We could talk about programming projects you're working on, how your day's going, anything like that, you know? I'm good with it. Especially on a day like today where I'm I'm just, taking a real casual approach here at my programming today, I think I say that more often than not, but I really vibe with the slow and steady approach, because as it turns out, slow and steady often ends up being a nice, stable approach. At least it helps me think through things a little more, Anyway, I guess the long and short of it is, I hope everyone's doing okay. I am glad, if you're watching this, that you're spending time here. I really appreciate it. That's cool stuff. Alright, what should I do? What's the next thing to do? That's always the question. I have an idea. So, what I have here, right, is this translate-g. What I need to do is create just one function here that does translate x, y, and elements. And all it is, I believe, all it needs to be is the map of translate element over elements. And I think, honestly, that should be sufficient for doing translates over all of my different shapes. And one way to find out is to do this. If I go over here, right, and pop in back here, this closed path is one cool looking path. But I want to delete this translate here. Right, save that. Okay, so that's over there. Good. Next thing to do, I don't need this closed path anymore. I want to uncomment this. Okay, so we have a line and a path now. That's good, right? Let's see. Okay, there's a line. Let's undo this polyline here. Have a look at where that shows up. Oh, let's move that. That's a little far out there. Let's put it closer in here just so we don't lose track of it. Let's do 100, 100. Oops. Let's do it like that. Perfect. Okay, let's do a rectangle. Should be right in the corner there. Let's make it 50 by 210, so it shows up more. There we go. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's lovely. Circle and ellipse. Let's see. Perfect. They show up. They even have a translate built in, which is kind of cool, right? So if I do 150, 150, 150, 150, let's do that. Okay, so all I want to do is wrap all of those things in a single call to this translate function to see if it does what I want. Oopsie. That's annoying to read. let's just leave it like that. Let's actually do it this way. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let me make sure that okay, I gotta do it here. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect. Okay, so now the moment of truth. Let's see if it works. Yes! Alright, now let's double check. I should not see a group tag other than this one here that has fill none, stroke black, blah blah blah. Right, so I should see that here, which is scale 1. Why is that the case? Oh, that's right. This is still related to this here, this scale, which is probably something I should work on, but for the time being, I'm going to leave it be. For right now, that's fine. So there should be another G tag right in there that has the color styling, fill none, stroke black, which is this here. And now inside it should be, oh, that's too bad. Okay, so I do indeed have, let's try that. Let's save that. No. Wait a second. Let's not be silly. Okay, so translate and translate G. There's a mismatch here because I saved this but didn't refresh this, so it didn't load in the new definition. I believe that's what's wrong. So let's go ahead and reload this. Okay, so we have some problems, which is good, kinda. I mean, in the sense that we know it's attempting to load my definition. So we have, oh, right. I wonder if I do this, if that'll fix things when I refresh it. No. Wow, okay, so it's not working. Alright, so that's, let's see if it fixes itself if I save this. Okay, so we're back in business here. Right, so what's happening? Let's have a look. Oh boy. Let's try it in the REPL and see, have a look at what happens. How's that? I think that's always a good idea. Let's do translate. Let's translate just a single element, and we'll just do a simple one. We'll do a line. Okay, so we'll translate it 1010, and the line itself is just going to be from 00 to 11. Oop. Actually, let's make it 25, just because. Okay, so wrong number of arguments, 1 passed to eval. Well, what would that be, eh? It's probably because here I need to do this. I need to do partial translate element with the XY call to it, and that should maybe just solve all the problems because I wasn't actually paying attention to how I wrote the function. Classic mistake. Okay, looks like we're on the right track there. So maybe it's as simple as that. Now, if I go back over here, if I save this, first of all, let's save it. No changes, let's refresh it. Translate G, save it. Okay, refresh that. translate, save that. Ooh, still broken, eh? Well, you know what? Oh, there we go. Okay, now the moment of truth, I guess. Okay, so this G is from this function here, svg/svg. This G is from this style thing that I put here. And perfect. We have a direct application to all of those elements. We have translate element applied directly to all of them, which is exactly what I was hoping to see. Now, save it with those, and it works even with that, and this, in fact, should work like this. Ah, okay, this is where a problem arises. And the problem there arises from the fact that probably calling this just adds another level of nesting in the Clojure sense. This creates a list of length 1 when instead I don't want that, because it creates, well, it's not valid. How do I do that? Well, we could make it map cat. I don't think that'll fix it, actually. Okay. So this is the old method. Oh. Yeah, okay, so it's not working. Okay, so that's not it. How do, I mean, I wonder if I could just do this, make a multi-arity approach. X, Y, just one element. And then all you do is translate element, X, Y, element. Yeah. And then this one is the next approach. Although I'm not sure if this is gonna give me an error. Let's find out. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Right, so you can't have a fixed arity function with more parameters than variadic function, right? So it would need to be x, y, lm, and lems, and that gets confusing. How do other functions handle this in a way that makes sense? Let's just get back to what I had originally. Okay, so we at least have this working function there. Well, of course, I'm doing the thing where This probably needs to be recursive, right? Because you can have translate nested in there. What's the right approach? What's the thing? Does that make sense even? Well, okay, let me just double check that my logic here is correct. Okay, so I'm running this translate over 2 circles instead of just the one like I had before. And this SVG, or this ellipse, I'm gonna double it as well. Ellipse 6040 there. Okay, so those are both translate calls. So this should work now. No, it does not. And the reason is okay, well, let's do this. Let's have a look. Copy that into the REPL here. Oh, right. All of these, we'll have to remove this because I'm in the namespace directly. Yeah. Polyline doesn't exist. Incorrect, sir. Incorrect. It's up here. Null pointer exception, eh? It's a little, that's never good. That's a bad thing. Why would that be? Well, okay. Translate line. We want to translate it 1010 and the line is 0025. Okay, so we have a list that's of one line. Okay, but if we want to do translate 1010 line and circle 5. Okay, so we have a list that's now a line and a circle. That's good. Oh, circle, let's do polygon. Let's do 00, 10, 0, 5, 30, 5, 20 is fine. That's good. That should all work. Right, so this is working the way I expect. Then what I need is now let's translate around the circle. There, so we get an error, and the reason for that is because when translate encounters a list, there's nothing for it to do, right? So when it encounters a list, it needs to recur again on itself, I guess. So let me see if that makes any sense. Right, so here you do this if trying to think of a clever way to do this that's really like that's nice and clean. But all I'm thinking of is this is and elements for lm in elements, right? You do if what's wrong if I do if element lm, if it is, then you do translate element x, y, lm, right? Otherwise, recur x, y, lm, right? Because so I have to write this for a minute. So it just means basically, okay, if it's an element, so it's got a key, it's a vector, and it starts with a keyword that's any of the element keywords, then you can run translate element on it. If it's not an element, that must mean it's a list, in which case you just recur the whole thing on to element itself, and then it runs that whole thing again. So that should work, I think. But what I don't know is, like, I could theoretically make map of this work directly and just make translate element if I have some default def method that works on just a list that automatically will recur it. Then I don't need to do the recursion in the translate part. So, but that seems actually worse. So let's see if my brain is even doing this properly. First of all, so if I define element as item element like that, right? So what needs to be true is first of element or first of item is a keyword. Let's do some of the rest of this. Right, so the first of item is a keyword. Vector. Wait, does it have to? Yeah, I think that's true. Item itself has to be a vector. First of item has to be a keyword. Actually, let me. How does this work again? I can save a thing here. If I just do, you can use a set as a predicate, I think. I forget. Yeah, so let's try that. Let's just test that this makes sense. Okay, yeah, so you can use that directly, which just means actually all I really need to do is this. I can make a really easy thing here. So if first of item is in the set itself. Oh, let's define it as a thing. What should the name of that be? Yes. Okay, so SVG elements, I should def up here. If I go shapes and I do this, def SVG elements as the set of these keywords, circle, ellipse, line, path, polygon, polyline, rectangle, and text, which I'll add. Well, let's leave it in there for now. Okay, so we have that. Now let's check that the predicate here actually works. Hey, we've got a problem here. Alright, let's see. Oh, of course, I still have to pass it item like that. There we go. Okay, so element, let's do that. Line, well, okay, that's an element now. Let's run that. Can only recur from tail position. Oh, right, because of the 4. So this is bad, but this needs to be reworked. But let me see if it does work. Okay. Perfect. It does not. I love it. Yeah. So let's see. Why would that not be working? The reason is because if element circle 5 yep, nah, yep, but this is not an element. If I do here, if I go circ R5, I made it up. Nah, it's not an element. Okay, that's good. But this is not an element either, right? If I do, well, let me, so if I do list circle 5, circle 4, 3, sure. This is not, okay. Right, so instead this needs to be thought out more intelligently. Right, we can do this better by doing it with basically it's, well, let's go here. No, I don't need that. Let me do right, so let lm be first of elements. So here I always do mess this up. It's not, it really shouldn't be this hard, but I always mess it up in my brain. Right, so if the first of the element is an element, right, then all you have to do is translate element x, y, lm, and then but if it's not an element, you recur immediately. Is that, let's see, does that make any sense? Recur translate x, y on lm. Mismatched argument count. Oh, of course. Recur, you gotta do this. You don't do. Alright, now let's try that again. Okay, so it's a different type of error, which is good. Maybe. Let's see if it works without this line in it. It still does not. And that would be because this is a silly mistake. Okay, let's try that. Right, so it's not terminating. Because, well, let's have a look. Does this work? This also doesn't even work. Okay. I need to take a step back. I'll be right back. I need to think about this again because Right, so right, so I have no terminating case here, right? So the terminating case how does that work again? If I do rest of a list of length 1, should be rest list 1 is an empty list. Okay. Right, so here, right, since rest can return an empty list, right, it'll be when there is an empty list here, it will always recur, right? So I need to I always get in my own head way too much with these recurring things, right? That's my problem. If I do something like this, default x y lm, and right, the default for translate element would be let's see if that actually I don't know why I wrote that. That was weird. I don't think this will work, but I'm curious to see if it does. Okay, so we have a new translate, and this is a temporary block. Okay, so that works. Let's try a nested translate here. That kind of works, right? So I've got a nil scenario here, which is not what I needed, of course. And it turns into nil because this first translate works on the circle there, but it returns a list. Yeah, okay. So that's not too surprising. It does make sense because I have here when list element, but if it's not a list, then it returns nothing. So actually, let's just do this, if list, and if it's not, then you just return element directly. Oops. Let's see if that fixes that problem. It kind of does, but it's nested in a list there, which isn't totally what I want, but it's not the end of the world, maybe? Let's see what happens if I save this. Still broken. Okay. Fine by me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's broken. It's close, right? Like this is cleaner in my opinion than doing the recursion stuff, but the recursion stuff is probably the right approach. Although, let me do this one last time. Well, let's test one more thing here. So we've got this translate, it's got a circle. Let's put another thing in there. Let's do rectangle with width and height. Let's do 10, 20. Yeah, okay, so it does work, right? So it's got the list here and then the nested list of those things and then that. And the reason that doesn't work here is because I wonder if this will fix it. Into that, you do this map. I have no idea if that'll work. Hey, what? I'm just confusing myself. Hey, Peroniata, how are you? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, okay, it's still broken. This. Is this even correct? Great, thanks. And me? How was the weekend? Yeah, thanks for asking. I had a fantastic time. We got a what's it called? A wake surfboard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Behind, let's see, maybe I can just show it for a minute. We went out to the lake and we got one of these, a wake surfer, and we were just learning that. It was so much fun. It was awesome. So the idea is, I don't know if you've ever seen any water sports like this before. Normally you have, like you're being pulled, you have a rope at the end of the boat, at the back of the boat, and you're skiing or something and you're holding it, right? And it's towing you. But wake, this is how you start with the rope, and then you drop the rope. Anyway, this, you're surfing on the wave that the boat makes, and it's just so much fun. So that was like the little highlight of my weekend. Of course, in general, it was really nice and relaxing. Beside doing that, I had a great time. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, by the way. That's awesome. It looks cool. Yeah, it was tons of fun. At least for me. I really enjoy that stuff. Was a great time. Where am I at here? Into this. Okay, that's wrong. Instead of into, if I do concat, no, conj. Yeah, conj is what I'm looking for. C. C there, if that's what I'm looking for. Let's try it. What's new and exciting on your end? Ah, there we go. It looks like things are working. Let's see. Sanity check. Let's change some stuff. Sweet. All right. So I'm happy with that for right now anyway. Just wondering though, if does this actually produce the result that I think it does, or am I just tricking myself? Let's have a look. Let's see here. Did you get up to anything cool on the weekend? Oh, doing things the good old-fashioned way there. Okay, so I actually kind of think this is useless. I don't think I really need that. I think it was just a matter of things not being loaded and compiled properly. I'm not sure. I'll test that in just a moment there. Not quite cool, just some regular stuff. Yeah, I mean, you know, regular stuff is pretty great too sometimes, right? Nothing wrong with regular. All in all, a good weekend though, I hope. Right, so let me just make sure. Okay. Let's try that. Let me completely refresh this. Yeah, definitely. You did some drawing, walking the dog, practicing some guitar playing. Nice. You have you had guitar lessons or anything? Are you doing self-taught? When I was younger, I took guitar lessons, and unfortunately, it dropped off my radar a bit. I still have a guitar, and every time I look at it, I think, oh, you know what? I really should spend the time, practice it again. I was actually pretty decent at one point, but Just got to get into practicing it again. I'm a little jealous, you know? I mean, that's a silly thing to say. I could go right over there and pick up my guitar and learn. All self-taught, coming back after years. Well, great work. I really do think instruments are a fantastic hobby, and I say that more to convince myself than anything else. That's awesome. Sounds like fun that you're getting back into it. That's awesome. Yeah. Now you're making me self-conscious that it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I really keep saying I should, and then I don't. Nice work. Nice work. Let's see here. Right, let's check that things are working okay. This is a whole mess of items, right? But I'm just making sure that my translate multi-method here is working as I expect and allows nested translations. Oh, it should allow arbitrary nesting, but let's check again. Let's check by translating this one circle further here. Let's see. Let's try that. Yep. Oh, wait a minute. That is not what I expected to happen. That's a weird one, eh? Why would that be happening? Okay, something isn't right, and I have to figure out what that would be. Okay. Anything stimulating our brains is a great hobby. I'm inclined to agree with that. Anything that, yeah, so I've used this before, not on stream or anything, but when I think about this and talk about it with my friends, I kind of call it, what is it, like active versus passive hobbies, you know? Like, you could make the argument that sitting and watching TV more often than not is a passive activity, as in you don't really have to think, things are just coming at you. Whereas if you are, say, writing an essay about a TV show, that would be very active, right? And I'm not saying one is better or worse, but in general, active hobbies are those things that stimulate your brain. Guitar, piano, learning a new programming language, and doing what I'm attempting to do, anything like that. Yeah, I'm spewing on about nothing. I talk about those as active and passive activities. But yeah, the active stuff is it's got a bit of challenge and frustration sometimes, but it leaves you with a rewarding feeling, right? Rewarding after some time. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's the thing, right? The active stuff, sometimes it's like not fun in the moment, right? It's like you're frustrated because you're not good at something, or you spent hours and hours and it's not getting anywhere. But if you stick through it, you have this sort of internal sense of satisfaction over a period of time, right? Which is like, you cannot really get that feeling of satisfaction from anything passive, right? Or at the very least, it's not the same thing, right? To a different degree, perhaps. Here I am pontificating about nothing in particular. All I can say is that you're learning the guitar, practicing it. Sounds awesome. I hope that goes really well for you. I hope you keep it up, and hope you enjoy it. Right, so I have this weird thing happening here where the circle translation is not actually happening like I thought it was. And the reason for that is Well, now I have to try this. If I do, okay, I'm gonna make the base case thing here. I'm gonna do translate circle of radius 5, right? Let me translate it by 10. Right, so we successfully have a circle being translated by 10 there. But now, if I translate the translate, so nest it, circle 5, what I would expect, or what I want this to be, is you translate the circle 10 and 10, then you translate it again 10 and 10. But all it's doing is it's doing one translate and then just nesting it. It's not actually running a new translate. So this doesn't work. So this is wrong. Possibilities of nesting functions just like that to get results is so mind-blowing for me. Not grasping this yet. Well, I'll tell you what, it blows my mind too, sometimes to the point where I am not 100% comfortable with it yet. To be totally honest and upfront, this is a spot where I still struggle yet. Like a professional, maybe professional is not the right word, someone who's really comfortable with Clojure over a long period of time, you know, could probably bust out the most appropriate way to do this relatively easily. And I am messing it up because I'm not totally comfortable yet. I can get there. I'm totally comfortable doing it wrong, playing around and learning how to make it right. But yeah, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that it kind of messes with my own head too. So if you're not grasping it, don't worry. I don't totally grasp it either, to be honest. It's a matter of paying attention and learning it. So what I can explain right now is what I was attempting to do is, okay, I have up here, well, let me step back a little bit and explain what I've been doing so far. This might be fun to listen to, but it's also useful for me because I was on vacation and I'm trying to wrap my head around my own code again. Okay, so I have these functions up here, which are just data structure wraps around the SVG elements: circle, ellipse, line, path, on and on. Right? So if I do path, for example, if I make a path 0, 0, 10, 0, and 5, 10, right? It's some kind of triangle. It just produces this here, path, D, blah, blah, blah. If I do pickup.core/HTML over that, I compile that into, not worrying at all, getting better at being patient. Nice stuff. That's the approach I'm trying to keep for myself too, you know, like you almost have to be patient with your own brain, right? You got to trust that it'll learn things eventually, but you need to have the patience and dedication almost to get yourself through that process at all. Okay, so hiccup.core/HTML is just the compiler, and it just emits HTML, valid HTML or XML strings, right? So this here, if I pair that with my path function, it produces a path element. Nice and simple. Likewise, if I do it with pickup.core/HTML circle 5, it will produce a circle with radius 5. So what I built was this translate function that that dispatches a different implementation depending on the element that's passed in. Okay, right? So that that I'm thrown off because that is not what I expected to see, and that's proof that something's going kind of goofy here. Right, so I have no idea why that's an empty list. It shouldn't be. It should in fact be not that. All right, let me see what's going on. Right, so the default here, the default translate is nothing. Let's try that. Let's see what happens here. If I well, that shouldn't make a difference. Let's try. Okay, so I'm going off the rails already. Something's wrong. Translate, if I were to do this, circle 5, that might work now. Let's try that. No. Okay, so that's not right. Well, translate element here. Okay, back to my explanation. This translate element function, of course, no wonder this isn't working. I'm not passing the right number of arguments. I'm being a little foolish, unfortunately. One of those days. All right, so okay, we're getting back on the rails now. This function here, translate element, is a multi-method here, def method. It dispatches a different implementation depending on the keyword in the first, like depending on the element that's passed in. Okay, so circle 5 here, the translate element will produce a circle with center x 10, center y 10, whereas the circle by itself, center is 0 and 0 there, right? So what I'm attempting to wrap up in a nice simple way is the ability to nest all of these things together. So what I should see here is CX20, CY20, and 5 there, right? So it's just, it translates this circle 10, 10, which results in a circle which is translated again. What I want is, instead of having to call translate element like that, I want to wrap it up properly in just a regular translate. And that's where I'm going wrong because I'm not thinking about it properly. To be blunt about it, I'm not doing it right yet. So here, this translate, it has to work on lists of items, but it also has to recur on nested translates, basically. And that's where my head's not in the game totally. So I've got this translate, it works on this circle, which moved it 10, 10, and this circle, which also moved it 10, 10. But what I need to make sure is going to work fine is if I have nested translates like this, and currently it's not working as expected. So here you can see this first circle is I expect it to be translated CX10, CY10, but this one, this circle here, should be 30, 30 because it's translated 20, 20, and then translated another 10, right? which is not happening. So I messed something up in how I wrote this all out. So what I attempted to do was have a default situation right in the translate element where if you pass it a list of things, it automatically just returns, it just runs itself on that list. Otherwise it returns an element by itself, right? So if I do translate element on list circle 5 circle 10, I always forget that I need to actually specify that I want it to translate. Here, right, is things are this is off the rails entirely, right? This is not done anything. It's just here, okay, list, this isn't working. So this is not the right way to do this. It's totally wrong. So what is the right thing to do? Let's start to revisit this translate here. Now, what I want to do though is I want to make sure we've got this environment in sync with my current work in progress of this here. So trying to follow, also trying not to disturb too much. Oh, hey, if you have questions or anything, you go right ahead and ask and talk in the chat. If I need or want to focus on something, it's up to me to not look at the chat. So if you have questions, if you have any feedback, anything at all, do not hesitate. You go right ahead. Part of the benefit of doing a stream for me is the occasional ability to goof off and listen to chat and talk with the chat instead of programming at all. So go right ahead and ask questions or talk in the chat. That's totally fine with me. It's not up to you how distracted I get, right? Maybe that sounds bad. I just mean go ahead, ask all the questions you want. It's up to me to answer or not answer, if that makes sense. And I prefer people to engage in the chat because it's a lot of fun, and over time it can build more excitement and learning and communication with everyone. So go right ahead. I will not be bothered by it. As long as things remain respectful and generally speaking helpful, we're good to go. And I feel like that's a pretty reasonable expectation. I think most people can handle it, you know? As to the goofing, it sounds encouraging. Well, you know, programming, I think in general can appear to be this like crazy convoluted thing that only some people can attack, but it can be fun, you know? Like you don't have to approach it all super serious all the time. So goofing around, I'm here for it. I am here for it. You know, programs are written by humans, and humans are these complicated, diverse things, right? Like people are complicated, right? So I want the stream to kind of bring some of that out too, you know? We can have fun. Tons of fun. It's not all about programming all the time, you know? Okay, so okay, so we are I am going to pare this down into a simpler visual test. So I'm gonna go like this, get rid of it, and we're right here. So this in here okay, if I do that, I should see just one circle. Oh yeah, I have to do it proper namespace. Okay, let's make that 25 so we can see it. Alright, so humans, too complicated beings to grasp simplicity. Isn't that the challenge, eh? Simplicity is this weird thing, right, where if you're talking simplicity in terms of solving a problem or providing an answer to a question, anything like that, simplicity is like one of the hardest things for us to do, right? It's so easy for us to explain something and add words and add analogies and add this and talk about that, when the simplest answer gives understanding, doesn't use an excessive amount of words necessarily, but that's so hard to do. Simplicity is really hard to get to, which is kind of this weird irony behind it all. Okay, so what I want to do here is check. There's two things that have to happen with this translate function. Did I mess it up already? It would appear that I have, because I forgot that. Okay, so there's two things that have to happen. The translate function has to work on any number of elements in a list, but I also need it to work on nested translate calls, which is what I need to test for here. So the next thing I want to do is actually just go crazy with this and add another translate directly above that to just check this. Oh, that's going to fail because I need the paren there. Right, so this is what I'm talking about. This outer translate is entirely ignored because of this one. This one works. See that? It moved. But this one doesn't work, so that's what I need to solve there. That's what I need. And of course, if I put 40, this circle does respond to this one, right? Yes, it does. But that is so not like that's just plain wrong. Anyone who were using this library would just, it's a glitch. It's just not right. Since this translate is inside this one, there, right? It has to be fixed. So in order for me to do that, this translate is wrong. So let's just blast it. It's gone. This one here is what I'm working on now, and in order for me to do that, I need to first get up and stretch for a minute. I'll be right back. I won't be long. Give me 1-2 minutes. All right. I need to make a recursive translate function so that it properly handles this scenario here. And in order for me to do that successfully, I need to really think about what's actually correct here. So we begin with translate. It can take x, y, and any number of elements. So what you need to check, or what you need, let's see. Let lem be first of the list of elements, and and then rest right. So there's let me see here. Count rest of list 1 0. Is that true or no? Okay, so when true, done, false. Let me see here. I'm just checking here. Okay, so when rest list 1. Okay, good. So when rest elements, you have to, oh geez, there's a few conditions. This is always the part that messes me up. Let's consider what happens first with just one single element. Let's try to set things up with a cond here. So cond condition, if lem is an element, then what you need to do is oh, am I forgetting? Do I need an accumulator in this? Maybe I'm just super overthinking this. Let me see here. Translate. maybe this can work. Default XY lm. Let's assume that lm is a list right away. Then you just return map translate element over lm, and that's it. It's very simple. Does it actually work? I don't know. And then here, translate would be as simple as, I'm back to where I started, but I need to make sure I'm understanding this properly. Translate, all you need to do is map partial translate XY, map that onto all of the elements. Let's give it a shot. Let's refresh this. Okay. Okay, so it works, but we have the same problem. That's all. Unless, okay, now we're on to something, maybe. Boy, my head is, I am in the weeds right now. Let me see here. I've done a okay, this draw edges thing here, recursive, right? Takes a thing, oh, maybe it's as simple as that. If I do, let me copy this as an example. See, this is the thing. I've done recursive stuff before, but it's not ingrained in my brain enough to do it with confidence. That's my current problem. I have no confidence in it. Okay, so translate takes x, y, and a single element, right? But it can, all I have to do, in theory, is check if and collection element wait a second, if what was it here? So yeah, if it's a collection and it's not, so if it's a collection and it's also not an element, right? So that means it's basically, it's a list. If that's true, then you just do concat of map of partial translate element xy, and you map that over the element, which is a list. Otherwise, you actually can actually translate element xy element. Right. Is that going to work? Let's see here. Let's have a look. Whoa, not what I intended to do. Let's undo that, shall we? Okay, so wrong number of arguments, 3 passed into translate. Yeah? Why would that be here? Let's see. Oh, right. That's the only thing. Right, so this now doesn't work on, so this here requires a single element to be passed in. It can't, you can't run it, like if I comment this out, now it should work. No? Really? What am I doing? I have a funny feeling that this will be exactly the thing that makes more sense to me off stream, right? Like you just can think a little clearer when you don't have a stream going. That's okay though. I don't mind. Right, so this is kind of working. So let's do 10, 10. Okay, so 10, 10, and 100, 100. Let's just do 10, 10, 10, 10. Let's check this circle and see, it should have a cx of 20 and cy of 20 because this translate and this translate. So that's working fine, right? The two things that are clashing in my mind are I need translate to work in a nested manner, but I also need it to work on an arbitrary number of elements inside, right? So doing it this way, it only takes in one element. It cannot take 2 or more elements. So what I need to do there is and elements, and then I do right, and this is where I get tripped up, because now I'm trying to merge 2 distinct ideas into one, and it can be done. I just it can be done. It's just what I keep mixing those up in my head. What if you passed a collection within element and then process it somehow? So that is actually technically what's going on here. Unless I'm misunderstanding you. Right, so this here, this here should, so if I save this, this will give an error because there's too many arguments. But if I pass translate a list, now it works. So that the only real problem I have is here, right? I don't want to explicitly pass a list like this. Oh, something went wrong, and that's because of what? Oh, I put the list in the wrong spot. Oh, I have to, let's see here. Now I did something goofy. Okay, so I have here translate 1010 list of these things. Okay. So your point is well taken, and it can kind of work, right? Like what I have here is if element is a collection, actually I wonder if I just do this, does that change anything at all? Right, if it's not an element, then you map translate element over the list of things that it is, so it would be a collection, right? If it, oh man, this is even, I'm being silly here, I should just do this, if element, translate element, otherwise, map, all of that. And I probably technically don't even need to concatenate this, I just map it, right? Let's see what happens now. Yeah, so not quite, I'm not quite right yet. Right, so we're not quite there yet, but we're approaching things. We're getting closer. Maybe. That's okay. I appreciate the suggestions. Oh, well, I messed it up. All right, let's get this back into a state of useful testing. Okay, so this won't work, right? There will be a wrong number of arguments passed, and that is totally fine. Because translate itself is currently, it can only accept a single element here. I can make it accept any number of elements by doing and here, and that'll make elements a list every time. So then what you can do is, or then what you have to do is, maybe this will work, for lm in that you do this whole thing here. I don't think this will work, but it's a stepping point. And then this, yeah, okay. So every time we run into the problem where it's not, where, like, it's basically things aren't being kept, like they're disappearing because it's only showing up, it's only showing the last thing it processed, basically. So maybe that's what the concat was for before. Nope, that doesn't do it. Right. So this is probably a circle 30. That's probably what it is here. If I look at the elements here. Circle. Oh, that's 25, eh? Huh. Funny. Funny. Oh, no, this would be if I do... Oh, that's the wrong thing. Concat. Oh, I really messed that one up, eh? Yeah, okay. Starting to spin in circles here a little bit. I actually did have one other example of something kind of working in the past here. If I go, I had this post I made a while ago. I have a basic implementation of the HTML compiler that has a similar sort of situation to what I'm doing now. So what I did here was I could do a cond-wise thing here, maybe. X, Y, and elements. Let This is now the boring part of the stream where I'm doing nothing but scratching my head and thinking. Oh man, I'm almost embarrassed because I've done this before and I should get better at it. I think probably what I really do need to do is make like test exercises and just practice this off stream so that I'm more and more comfortable with it. Because I really bet a seasoned Clojure programmer would be able to handle this with relative ease. It's just a weakness in my understanding, and I get all tense because I should just be able to do it, you know. A little silly, but don't worry. Thanks, appreciate that. Don't worry. Yeah, no, that's cool. Okay, maybe what I should do now is do it by cond, which is conditional. Shouldn't be ashamed of not knowing something, even if you knew it before. Well, I do really appreciate that. I'm sharing my mental state so that anyone viewing is informed of what's going on up in the cranium here. But yes, thank you. That is definitely very kind. Because it is really normal, right? Like, we forget things we've done before all the time, so I really shouldn't worry. Instead, I should try and focus on what I actually do need to get done here, or do want to get done. Right, so I'm going to go attempt to just kind of enumerate the conditions that can possibly arise here. And cond is short for condition here. So what it does is cond can take any number of predicates and then any number of forms to evaluate based on those. So let's go this way. Cond. The first condition is okay, so let's start with a simple condition, right? Translate has the length of elements is only 1. So you've called translate on just one thing. So we can do that by doing equals 1 count elements. So if that is the case, what I want to happen is translate element. I want to apply, basically I want to actually do the translation on the element directly. So that's the condition. Let me just only one element. The next condition is if there's more than one, if the count of if the count of elements is greater than 1, that means that you could have a bunch of elements directly, you could have a bunch of elements with nested calls, you could have a list in there. So immediately things get a little more, just a little more complicated. So that's what happens. This is what happens if you have just one count. You could do let lm be first of elements always. And that would still let's change, this is equivalent, but let's change this for a minute. If I do count of rest of elements, right, is 0, then that means you've come to the end of everything, and all you need to do is translate the one element. It's the same thing. But if that's not true, right, if the count of rest of elements is still greater than 0, then maybe I don't even need a cond. Maybe there's only one other scenario. No, that's not the case. Okay, so the next scenario could be the first element here is an element and rest is not 0. What you can do is run well, first you have to check that. The first element is an element and greater than 0 count. Let's make a I'm not sure if that's a good name to have, relems. That's weird, but we'll stick with it for the time being, so that we can have here, instead of always calling rest, we can just use it there. Right, so this, oh wait, no, that's right. Okay, so here we've got a situation where you've got the first element is an element and there are other elements remaining. What I want to do in that case is concat translate element xy of element. I want to concat that with the call of recur. I think that, let's see if recur will work there. It might. There. So what I've done here is, in the situation where the first element you're looking at right now is an element, so a circle, polygon, or whatever, I'm more used to this kind of names describing anything about the variable. That's what's the generic term for that? That's, oh, what is it? That's camel case, right? That's like that, camel case. Yeah. So you mean, so you, like in this sort of case here, you would do rest LMs like that. So I'll promise you that I'm not the best person at coming up with names, but in the world of Lisp languages, I've experienced things. It's way more likely that you have def my symbol name is kebab case, I think is what they call it, where you have all kinds of dashes in there, all lowercase. And I actually, so it, like, and in Python, for example, is different again. Python convention has something like this where they do underscores. All of these conventions are totally fine. I don't really care. My favorite is doing it this way because I don't have to hold shift for capital for making capital letters, and I don't have to hold shift to make underscores. And it's relatively readable still, in my opinion. So it's common to see that in Lisp languages. In Clojure, it's pretty normal. I just also happen to really like it. The only downside is if you start writing in another language, right, and you use the convention that you're used to, but is not typical of the other language, people are going to be like, whoa, what are you doing? It's crazy. So like, if I zip up here, this pane is a bit of Clojure script, which sometimes has to do stuff with JavaScript. Here, as an example, there's event type, which is what you described earlier. That's some camel casing there. And client X, client Y, there's camel case there. So you can kind of tell when other languages conventions are slipping into different areas, which is all fine. It's no big deal. What kind of messages am I getting here? There's all kinds of stuff going on. You had this university teacher who was like a disciple of Uncle Bob. He was always saying code should be readable like a good book. So variables and function methods should be descriptive. So I tend to agree. The problems I run into are things like this. So in my personal opinion, take it for what it's worth, if I'm writing a function where I have, like, I'm short forming, so this makes sense to me. LMs, maybe you would do it like this, elements, right? In my opinion, LM or element are equally readable, not because the word is more, like, this is a short form, right? But it's pretty clear LM is singular, and you just look at this definition here as the first from the list of elements. And then there's a point where if the variable name rest elements, like if my variable name is this many characters, it's almost just as good to not make a variable name at all and just call rest elements like that. So I'm just, I don't know if it makes sense to bother making a variable at all. If it's really descriptive, it's a really long string. You know what I mean? Yeah, it can be too lengthy otherwise. So some of the times the code I write, if it's like, you especially get this if it's a math thing, right? You almost have A is times 2B, or like you have essentially arbitrary variable names, but if you have your whole function really small, you almost, like, someone reading it can almost always have the reference right there, so they can always understand it still. Anyway, I'm not the best at naming things, so it's a thing that I sometimes struggle to know exactly what's right, but some of the refactoring later on helps to clarify names and stuff like that. And in Clojure, you can add doc strings here. You can use markup in this for better docs formatting too. So you can you can always add clarity to things. Anyway, bit of a digression, but that is okay. Right, so this condition is current element. Well, let's see here. So the only other condition is, I think, there are two hard things in programming: naming things and cache invalidation. Yeah, naming things is a hard one. Cache invalidation is too. I've heard it. There's one problem in programming, naming things and off by one errors or something like that as well. There's one problem. It is surprising how hard naming things actually is. And you don't really, like, it seems trivial, right? It seems like, naming things, what do you mean? But you have to come up with names sometimes, and it's not always obvious what to call things. Okay, so the next scenario is if element is a list, if the current element is a list. Oh, well, this is not totally right. Okay, let's see here. So we've got right, so if element is an element and there's no remaining elements, you just translate, oh, gotta do this. Right, and then you got here not okay, so you have this situation where element is not an element and there's no remaining elements, so you just do recur, not, you actually just do recur lm because it's a list probably, and then here if element is not an element and count there are still elements remaining, that means you're in a list. Now this is the one that I'm a little confused by. You're feeling that, being flooded by managers, helpers, and utility classes within colleagues' code. Yeah, that's another thing that currently I fortunately have the luxury of not needing to worry about. This is a code base I'm working on my own, so all of the mistakes and stuff that I hate are my fault alone. I don't have to work, for right now anyway, with the opinions and approaches that other people contribute that are not the way I think, you know. And sometimes there's stuff that's not done in an intelligent way that you have to deal with. Sometimes there's things done differently that are just confusing to you. So yeah, that can be a tough situation. But if you love programming and you like people, then you can make it work, I think, you know. Definitely. Yeah. This situation, does this even make sense? Does it even make sense what I'm doing right now? This is wrong, but let's see what happens. Yeah, I want to concatenate the recur of wait a second, what am I doing here? XY lm with recur See, this looks so wrong to me because I don't think this is how, like, you can only technically use recur in the tail call position, and I'm pretty sure I'm not doing it that way. So let's see here. Yeah, see that? So let me go ahead and undo, let me just do this. Probably this is gonna blow up the stack, but it's fun to try. Okay, so it is a function that compiles now, but the question is, does it actually make sense? Will it work? Okay, I have, where is it? Here. Okay, let's get back to the app here. Definitely. Okay, let's see. Totally wrong. Unexpected end of file while reading. Yeah. Fine. Did I mess something up here? I thought I was okay. Concat that. Huh, I thought that would be totally fine. Shoot, this is the stuff that I don't love when I mess up. One thing I keep putting off because I'm lazy. Wrong number of args. Yeah. Is trying to is sitting down and properly learning par-infer and par-edit, like fully setting up my code environment for more efficient writing of my code. So that's stuff to work on. Right, so okay, let's have a look. I'm pretty sure the actual thing I'm having a problem with now is I'm not actually I'm not properly accumulating the, oh wait, I don't want this. I need to undo that. Yeah, okay. So we got problems. Okay. Oh man, did it work? Maybe it worked. Let's have a look here. If I make this 100, hey. Alright, that looks like things are working at least a little bit better than they were before. Did that move? I blinked. Sweet. Okay. So. This is now working the way I expect it to. Awesome. Let me check. I would expect to see this circle of radius 30 to have a total translation of CX to be 130 and CY to be 150 with no group tags or anything. So cool. Yeah, I'm really jazzed that this is working. I strongly suspect that there are cases that I'm not fully thinking of right now. The other thing is, there's probably a way more efficient way to write this that probably only uses, let's say, maybe one, maybe two conditions. So I could probably reduce it to an if statement and a nice recur. But for right now, it's working, and I'm proud of that. So note to self, see if there's a more efficient approach. Try reduce branches. Try there's always more elegant solutions that comes with pure mileage. Yeah, I don't doubt it. But you know, so I'm totally fine with the approach of make a set of functions that do exactly what you want. Build tests and make sure they're working okay, and then you can work on refining your implementations as you go, right? Like it's not always about efficiency up front. It's about getting the ideas and the workflow down. At least that's how I'm approaching it, and always wanting to make a more efficient approach, but being sometimes okay with a working approach over spending tons of time getting to the most efficient. It's a balance, I think. Okay, so try reducing branches, try to boil down to one if statement and a recur call. Let me put a little note here. Maybe I could do this with an accumulator. Arg. All I mean by that is, well, I don't know what I mean by that. Let me see here. Right, so I was going to check this element here. Like I said, it should have 130, 150. That's exactly what we see. And then this circle here, we see 130, 50, which is this, which is exactly correct. It has no, like there's no other translate applied to it, which is perfect. So now what I would like to do is just so I'm using just circles here. What if I do rectangle 25, 50? Yes. And this rectangle, let's say I wanted to do it another translate here. I wanted to make it, well, let's actually make it, just because I'm a little lazy, let's make it 100 by 50, but I want to translate it so that it's centered, so that it's, I wanted to translate it minus 50 and minus 25. Let's see if that works. It does not, and the reason it doesn't is because I'm missing a paren. And now, okay, so we have encountered something that's not totally working yet. Why might that be? Have I made a situation, let's see here. Okay. I wonder if this will work. Nope, still not totally, not completely right. And we are running into time constraints here. I have to get going soon. So, okay, there's a situation that I have where it doesn't work still. Right, and that's because of what? That must mean there's a branch that is not considered, right? See, there's only the two circles here. There's the 30 and the 50. So we got this one, and we have this one here. So there is a situation, there's some branch where things are getting clobbered, basically. And that is in the situation here. Well, actually, let me, now I can actually do this. Let's pop it in the REPL, have a quick look. We'll write some notes on what I can do off stream. What I want to do is probably refine all of this off stream tonight, and hopefully tomorrow or Thursday I can actually show it working. Wrong number of args passed to not. Hey, why is that? Let's try that. Okay, nil. Okay, so what this means is there's definitely a branch missing. Let's have a look here. Else failed. Let's do that and let's have a look. Right, so that is well, you know what I can do? I can actually return, right, in the else case here, I can actually return element and see what that is. And of course the element is a rectangle, but I can also return, them both like this, so I can see exactly what's going on. So we have here, we're at a situation where we've got first of that, right? So the what did I just do there? Right, so okay, so hey, Nemethil, how are you? Good to see you here. Hope you're having a good day. Alright, what have I've just made a jumbled mess of garbage here, apparently. Let's go back to this for a moment. Oops. I don't know what it is. I always have a hard time with your name. I think it's the 3s instead of E's or something like that. Nemethil. I'm just gonna assume that I'm approximately close. Do you have a good weekend? Right, so we have this rectangle that has, the translate has not been applied to it, right? Because the width is the same, or no, the width is fine. The translate has indeed, it has been applied. Okay, so we're at a situation here. We've got that. Let me do this. Have a look at just that. And the remaining elements. That circle, the radius 50 circle, is the last here. And does it have, it does not have this translate applied to it. So there are things, getting lost in the mess here. So element here, it is an element, and count of RLMs is, so I would have thought that this triggers this scenario, but I missed that. Why is that? Does this translate work on singular things? I didn't think to check that yet. Oh, okay, it does work on that. Does it work on lists of arbitrary things? Oh, okay, so here's an issue. Right, it dropped this circle entirely, so the reason for that, it dropped that and it didn't translate the other ones. So we're in a situation that doesn't make any sense here. Oh, this is the situation that's triggering this. Okay, so the situation here is where the first of the first thing in the list is an element, and it should be this. That doesn't work. Okay, this is unfortunately something that I'm gonna have to do off stream. I do have to get going. I wanna, this is still not working. Spend time off stream getting it working correctly. Use recur appropriately and write tests to make sure it works. So that's what I have to do off stream. I want to say just before I go, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for engaging in the chat. I really do. I really like doing that. It's a lot of fun. It helps keep things kind of light, engaging. On my end, it's just a joy to talk with people. So anyone who is watching this at any point and isn't sure, like, totally feel free to talk and chat. I love it. It's great. Anyone watching right now, like I said, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love these streams so much. I'm gonna keep doing them. It's some good fun. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. Thanks a lot. If at all possible, spread the word, pull other people in, get them enjoying it too, you know. I like doing this a lot, and I want to build this up more and more, you know. I'd love to get to the point where there are people who know more about things than I do, which is not hard to get to, talking in the chat and helping each other out. Almost, you know, like the conversation can continue, I can join in, or I can focus on my thing and things keep going. So if we can build up a community over time, oh man, I'd be super happy with that. But that's neither here nor there. thanks so much for joining me now. I really appreciate it. I should be, definitely. Your streams and YouTube channel are motivating to me. Well, I'm really glad I can be helpful to you in that way. That is honestly very encouraging. It's exactly that kind of stuff that is not the sole motivation, but a good part of motivation for me doing this at all. So that's really awesome to hear that. Enough chit chat from me. I have to get going. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow because I missed Monday, and I'm really hoping tonight I can finish this part up, this translate thing here, get the recursion all sorted out properly, and I should be back showing that off tomorrow, and then I can continue with other stuff like rotation, scale, and maybe cleaning up some of the 3D implementation stuff, but we'll see how that goes. On that note, I hope you have a good day, whoever's watching. If you're watching in the future, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one, and I will be on my way. Have a good one.